Welcome to the Courageously Candid Coaching Podcast Series 2. I'm Matthew Radley, founder and CEO of MRA Executive Coaching, and this is the podcast where we say it as it is, where we are courageous and candid combined. We'll be stepping away from our professional corporate profiles and instead delving deep into the lives of global leaders and expert coaches, inviting them to go back to a moment in their lives of shift, stretch, or stillness. A moment where everything changed. In this episode, we will be exploring the very raw and challenging conversation of mental health and suicide. We will understand what it takes for one human being to be able to save the life of another through having the right level of knowledge in order to step in appropriately. Should all leaders and coaches have this level of awareness? Yes, is our answer at MRA. This is an honest dialogue and one that is grounded in reality and emotion. My guest today is Joel Sidney, General Manager for Benelux for the Nordics at Mattel EMEA, who has trusted MRA with professional mental health programs and has said yes to bringing his truth to our conversation. Joel is a role model for taking learning and transferring it into his way of being. This podcast is particularly sensitive and has a warning for topics including suicide, so please listen to this conversation with that knowledge. And if you would value support following the podcast, please reach out to MRA for further information, advice, and signposting. Okay, Joel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Good to have you with us.
Yeah.
So let's set some context. When did we first connect? Why did we connect? And why are you still in the room right now?
I was thinking about this the other day. Thank you for a great podcast, by the way. Thank you. So I was thinking about this, and we dated back to 2019. And I think my boss at the time had said, we're going to do some mental health coaching for the workplace.
Yep.
Would you be interested in being an ambassador? Which I said, yes. And obviously then what preceded us working on sessions was, pretty much groundbreaking for me and life-changing. So it was an incredible experience. I think I had never really, before we'd met, reflected on my own mental health, and it's particularly, I'd been through a series of things in my life that had shaped my own mental health, and I think to sit there and actually think about what's happened in your life and the impact that has on you was amazing. I was kind of like a silent advocate of mental health. Okay, if I say it, like on social media, on Instagram, I'd post things around male suicide. I'd post things around, that if you're having a bad day and like broken podcasts and things like that. But I'd never really done anything to help my own mental health.
For yourself, okay.
And then you broke me.
Thank you for that. That wasn't the intention. So if we look at it through the lens of if there was a leader or a coach listening to this conversation right now, and we take, I guess, them back on that journey of intervention for you, if you're a coach, if you're a leader, what is and is not allowed or should be unacceptable in the space of understanding mental health, do you think?
Yeah, so it's a difficult one, but it's a complex one, right?
Okay.
Mental health obviously is quite unique and comes in many shapes and sizes and forms in various individuals. Yeah. I think a lot of organizations these days try to offer mental health support. Yep. But it's very much on a end journey piece. So it's more like after the situation has happened, we can offer you support. And it's sometimes I feel it's a bit of a nod to like, oh yes, we offer you some mental health support. What I found is actually you need to go earlier and you need to have those conversations with people and not create the stigma. There's still a massive stigma in the workplace around it. And I think when we did our session, if you remember back,
I do,
I shared my mental health journey with the whole of the entire organization, which was, at the time, I was petrified to do that.
What were you scared of?
Well, this is the point, is that people, the stigma around it is that I had my friends and family telling me it would be career suicide to share your mental health journey with people. And actually, it turned out to be the best, most rewarding thing I've ever done. And it shaped me as a leader now because showing my vulnerability, sharing my story has actually meant that I have more empathy. I have more people can connect to me, and I've helped more people in my organization and outside of my organization as a result of that.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I acknowledge my own mental health, but then people understand you become very empathetic, and people can relate to you and share their experiences with you.
So do you think it's possible, I really like what you just said there, do you think it's possible to be a coach or a leader who supports others with mental health without first addressing yourself in that context?
I think you need to understand your own mental health awareness before you can help others.
Okay.
And I say this, as I said, as a silent poster, a silent advocate of mental health, I would be the guy that would say, yes, like, biggest killer of men under the age of 45, suicide.
Yep.
And in my own, I'll give you an example of my own journey. I lost my cousin at 28 to suicide. And then I also lost my best friend at 32 to suicide, which was incredibly difficult. And I locked everything away and switched it off. I would not be in the position I am now if I hadn't have addressed some of those issues that I dealt with through both of those tragic losses. Yeah. And I think too often as leaders, we don't share our vulnerability and we don't address our own mental issues. There is so much as a leader of an organization that has shaped you, right? Without every single person that is leading an organization or even managing teams has been through some kind of trauma or some kind of event in their life that will affect them. Yeah. Often they just tuck it away because they think, actually, this is going to affect my chances of progressing, or actually I don't want to talk about it. And it's only, I found in my experience, addressing that, talking about that, and working through that actually makes you a better leader and a better individual and a better human being. Yeah.
So if we run through the process then, so number one, address ourselves in the context of our own mental health and all the challenges that those around us potentially have had. Yeah. Coaching, counselling, whatever the support mechanisms might be for that. Yeah. So how do you then translate that back into the work as a leader? And what's the implication of not having that level of knowledge? Yeah. Big leader, big teams, big organizations. What happens if you're a leader who doesn't know that level of knowledge?
Yeah, I think you need to share vulnerability, I think, is a big part of this with your team. And it doesn't have to be on a big scale. It doesn't have to be the whole organization. But people generally who work for you want to feel seen, and they want to feel heard, and they want to feel valued and cared for. And they also want to have empathy for you as a leader. And I think you need to show that empathy with your teams, whether it's through one-to-ones, whether it's through smaller team meetings. Share your vulnerability with those teams, because it will help your teams to understand and have that conversation. The biggest thing is people shut down; they don't talk, and that's the bit that is really worrying. That like we need to create. I feel you need to create an area of psychological safety within the office, right? And that comes from culture, right? And when I've recently, 2 years ago, moved to Amsterdam, took on a new team, and I went there with a mindset of I just was going through a breakup in my relationship. I didn't really want that job, but I took that job because I thought this is right for me, this is right for my career, and this is a good place to go. And when I got there, I had this imposter syndrome, I had this overwhelming, and my emotions are riding high. I wasn't controlled. I was like. And actually, then I went back to the work that we had done and reassessed. And that introspection piece of actually taking some time and going, right, calm. Let's think about this. Let's think about like believe in yourself. That was really key in the success of my journey. But then I took those learnings and put that into the team. So I met with every single individual in the team over the course. We had 23 nationalities and 48 different languages.
Okay, wow.
But I invested time. That time was so important, so critically important. I shared my experiences of what I've been through. I told them what was important to me. I made myself vulnerable. I made myself accessible. And I think these are things that leaders need to do with their teams because it really builds that culture that actually you can create a psychologically safe environment for your teams if you've got the right culture.
Do you know what? I don't think I've ever heard a leader say, something that you just said, which I'm really fascinated by, which because obviously when you're educating or coaching very senior leaders, often actually we're coaching them on emotional intelligence and empathy, or a lack of. Invariably, leaders get to the top because there's a level of ego that drives them there. So actually, their ability to learn EQ is important. What I heard you say though was that by driving out a level of vulnerability, the employees create empathy for their leader. So rather than from the leader down, from the employee up, and you create empathy in the curiosity of being vulnerable.
Completely, yeah. And I have an example of this. Like when I was going through a really rough time, I had a really strong team around me.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is an interesting point, and whether people agree with me or not. When you're struggling mentally, the natural default for an organization or a team is to go, take time off work. Go, like, this is not good for you. Like, go and take time off work. What people don't realize is sometimes you need that structure to be able to come in and actually that psychological safe space. Even if you're only operating at 20, 30%, having structure around you is really, really important. And I got into a bit of a spiral after the breakdown of my marriage. And my team realized that actually me going off, and for me, taking time off work was not the right strategy, because you just spiral down.
Yeah.
What they did, they kept me in the moment, kept me in the structure, in the process, and actually that helped me rebuild. And it came from being vulnerable, sharing my experiences, sharing my journey. That then made them more empathetic and supportive towards me as their leader as well. And it was an incredible journey. And to this day, I'm so thankful for the team I had around me at that time.
And if we would make this really personal, so you generously shared the experiences of where the word suicide has come into your life. You've obviously been through your mental health learning experiences. You're now employing those as a leader. Where have they been their most successful? What examples have you got where you think, had I not have invested in that learning, had I not have done the work on myself, I probably couldn't have been here for that person in that moment for them?
I think
what would you say?
I think I shared this with you before, but after doing our training, I think there's a fundamental piece of work that we did together that I think everybody can take learning from, which was tracking your mental health on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Simple things, scoring 1 to 10 on a daily basis. Firstly, that makes you realize where you are on a scale and how well you're, like 10 being really happy and 1 being really like the lowest of low. You can see mental health fluctuates up and down completely day to day.
On the continuum.
And the bit that really helped me was knowing that when you're at a 3, how do you get to a 4? How do you get to a 5? Like, and the things that make that difference. And that was game changing for me, because what I actually did, I tracked my mental health, as you're aware, tracked it for a month, and I saw that my wellness was like this. So one New Year's Eve, I was socially being my silent advocate of mental health on social media, and a guy I used to play rugby with was putting some unusual posts online, and something in me went, "This is not right. There's something not quite right here." So I messaged him, which led then to back and forth, led to a 40-minute phone call, and he was on the verge of taking his own life. And I harped back to all the learnings we'd had from talking, showing empathy, listening, talking about the mental health journey, sharing my experiences with him. And ultimately then we got him some mental health care, and he admitted himself into care. And about 3 weeks later, I got a most beautiful message from him saying, "You saved my life." And again, it's so powerful to think that I probably would have not looked at those messages 6 months earlier have we not done the body of work. And then suddenly to be in a position where that's fundamental. That is absolutely life-changing, game-changing. That's why it's so important for leaders and individuals to understand and about the importance of mental health. It takes lives.
What did that do for you at a human level? Forget the leader bit and the coach bit, just for a kind of Joel, being Joel, with the experiences that you'd had previously. What did that moment do for you? You made a conscious choice to step into a dialogue, and it had a consequence. What does that do for you as a human, Joel?
Well, it obviously makes me feel proud. But it also makes me thankful more than anything else. Thankful that another friend of mine or another person that I know didn't take their own life.
Yeah.
And that's the short of it, long and short of it. Losing 2 people by suicide was awful. And I said to myself, I'll do anything I can to not go through that pain again and not go through that again, because it's and so when you translate that into the workplace, there are people that are coming into the office every single day that could be on that edge, that might be having horrendous experiences at home, could be illness, sickness, or whatever. What's getting them into work every single day? Yeah. And that's the bit that, it's worth having a conversation around. Yeah. And as a leader, I think managers are terrified of having conversations around mental health. Yep. Absolutely terrified.
Why is that?
Because they don't have the skills. They're not equipped. And I think that's how I see it. I think, and so the more that you can bring coaches into the workplace, the more you can talk about this, the more you can give people the ammunition to be able to. Ammunition is probably not the right word, but the skills to be able to actually have that conversation. Yeah. But as I said, a lot of it comes from just doing the little things. Yeah. Little things, they say little things don't matter. They absolutely do in an office environment, so going and having a cup of tea, sitting there at the coffee machine, just, how are you doing today? How are things? Pulling together a little town hall and getting everyone together and sharing a story, celebrating some of those successes in the office, and I think, at the moment, companies are really up against it financially, with increased rates, business rates and everything. First thing that happens when you start getting the business struggling, they cut those socials, they cut those events where you bring teams together. And those things are so important in generating well-being, in generating camaraderie in terms of teams and everything as well. And I think those moments are really, really important, those little things.
It's interesting because the stats during COVID times came out with isolation being as the number one reason for people taking their own lives, and that fundamentally being as a lack of belonging. I don't belong anywhere. I belong in this multimedia world and everyone can get hold of me and I can get hold of everybody else, but actually I don't really, really belong to anything, really. And I wonder to what extent having that level of knowledge allows you to create an environment of belonging for those people when they need it in that moment.
Yes, absolutely. And people want to feel heard. Right? As I said, they want to be seen and they want to be heard, And so again, I made a pact to myself when I moved to Amsterdam. I'd try and learn everybody's names within 12 months. Yeah. Now, we've got obviously 23 different nationalities. Yeah. So my pronunciation might not be very good, but I'm pretty much there now. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that takes time, that takes investment, right? And that's and the other thing I said is I'd want everybody to be heard. Yeah. So I set up this thing called Your Voice, where as a leader, I would make myself accessible to everybody in the office. And 3 things they asked for. Okay. Crazy. I thought these were going to be fundamentally massive things that are going to be change the game. Yeah. One of them was they needed new coffee machines. Yeah. One of them was they wanted 2 microwaves in the kitchen, right? And we had very low engagement scores. Yeah. The final one, they wanted softer toilet paper.
There you go.
So I was like, this is done, right? Yeah. This is done. But those 3 things, once we sorted that out, the culture and the change of environment was, actually, we asked for this and we got this. Yep. It started changing the whole, it started. And then people would they started playing Uno at lunchtime together, So these things are just bringing people together is massive in terms of supporting that mental health.
You break the isolation model and you create belonging for people. I'm really interested in this one. In terms of mental health in a global organization with multiple nationalities and languages, we know that when we coach internationally, some cultures are very closed off from talking about things like mental health or neurodivergence. It's just culturally not the norm. But you work in an organization where you've got leaders you've got an organizational culture, but you've also got multiple nationalities and cultures. Any trickies that you've come across in terms of cultures where a conversation around mental health hasn't been quite as easy as maybe some Western countries would like to think they are at?
I think, again, it's it's about the individual and spending the individual time. As you said, you're right. We have 23 nationalities. Each one of them is different, and each one of them. But again, it's flipping the conversation to talk about what they are like, what their interests are, and how like, and then just tweaking your conversation with each of them. Again, if you share your own experiences, I think that helps a lot. And it's not like you can't just sit down with someone on the first meeting and go, so let's talk about your mental health then. Like, I mean, it doesn't work. It builds, you have to build that trust over a period of time. And I think like you have to make that time. It's like, I used to have people in the office say, how do you make time to have one-to-ones with all the office? And I said, because it's one of the most important things I do as a leader. It's too often we do skip level, we do board meeting, but actually, from the cleaner to the receptionist to like the customer service, whatever, you have to make that time and you have to be accessible as well. To say my doors are, so I don't have an office. I sit open plan with everyone. Like obviously I'll go and do some calls in one of our booths, but I sit open plan and I sit with the teams, and that's a culture that we have across the whole of Mattel. We don't have offices anymore. We want to be in with the teams. We want to be like, integrated with them as well. So I think that's an example.
What's the risk of, at a sort of very personal level to you, what would have happened had we not shared that intervention together?
Oh, it's a great question, right? I thought about this a lot.
It's not an obvious answer.
No,
I'm not fishing for anything. I'm genuinely interested what might have happened. The solution might have been maintained the same, but I'm really interested. I think we not done it.
So first and foremost, the generation, I'm 50, and the generation was close book, lock everything up, carry on. And I think that's after our work, I realized that strategy is not a good strategy. And I think I now understand that I don't want other people to employ that strategy, right? That's like, our fathers, that generation, it's not a good way to be. And my son and my daughters, I want them to be able to talk about mental health, and I want them to understand mental health, that it's not a bad thing. Everybody fluctuates and everybody has episodes and things in their lives that can affect them. I certainly would not have made that intervention with my friend. And I think, God forbid, we can't ever say in those split second moments or whatever, but like certainly that intervention would have happened, because it's very easy to just sit there and say, I don't want to get involved in that. Don't ask the question if you're not prepared for the answer, right? And I think that's an attitude that a lot of people will do. It's easy to walk across the road or not get involved. So after our intervention, I will always get involved. I will always ask that question, and I will always put myself to help other people. I think that has been a beautiful thing from the work. And then the other bit is about sharing, right? So again, sharing across the whole of the organization, which I was told would be career suicide, has actually turned out to be the best thing that's happened to me from a personal perspective, but also from a career perspective. So I will continue to share that word, and which is why we're here today, right? To share the journey.
Share the word. And what would you suggest to leaders who maybe haven't had poor mental health before, so are coming at this from a very kind of, I don't really understand it because I personally have never experienced it, and yet we know it's critical that you understand it to help the next person.
Do you think, I'm challenging you, Matt, do you think that leaders that say they haven't experienced mental health that's a genuine thing? Because everybody in life, like if we take the exercise we did where we go 1 to 10, right? Every one of those leaders would have been at a lower number versus a higher number. For sure. So I think like, when we say this, like, I never get mental health, I think that's where a bit of the problem lies, because leaders aren't acknowledging enough. I'm the MD, I can't and I'm not sharing this. So I think that's where the problem starts. We've got generations of people now, younger people coming to the workplace that are less resilient and are struggling with the mental health. And then we've got an older population. I've never struggled with mental health. I don't know what this is. It's going to cost the business, many problems of people going off sick. And it's how do we bridge the two of those together? And I think you've got people in the middle who understand it and they're trying to move forward. So I think this is where the importance of coaching with leaders is really, 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 really key. Because they need to understand the impact of their own mental health to then be able to
in the culture.
I
love that. And if they've never experienced something as serious as suicide in their life, how might a leader seek to understand what that really does to an individual, their support network around them, the families of, the friends of? How do we find that information out if we haven't been exposed to it?
Well, I think it's the same with anything. Like, there are leaders, there are mentors, there's coaching. I think that's where the coaching piece comes in. There are the people who are openly willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
My cousin's family, this Calm campaign against living miserably, which again is incredible. Yeah. There's videos, there's content there to see the impact for it. Not so much in the workplace, right? Which is, I think that's where I think there's work, and the work you're doing is fantastic to try and share this knowledge. Yeah. So, and again, following on from this, if people want to reach out, through, I'd be more than happy to talk about it,
to play that space. I'm really interested in. We had a podcast in the last series which was all around neurodiversity and the importance that leaders must have a baseline level of knowledge of neurodiversity in order to be a leader for their teams. Yeah. I'm sort of interested in, what is the absolute minimum standard, do you think, for a leader in terms of their understanding of the mental health continuum and therefore gives them the possibility to provide the right level of support, etc., in the workplace if the organisation doesn't provide that learning?
Yeah. That's a tough one, but to your point, they do need a base understanding. Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I said, they need to understand their own where they are on their own mental health. They need to understand the extremes, and I think it's prevention rather than cure. Right? I think that is. Most people now, I'm not generalizing, but burnout is really, really key. And I think the culture of businesses now is it's deliver at all costs. Yep. Does all cost mean your team are going off and burnout? Does all cost mean you're driving someone to get into a very, very dark place? So I think leaders need to understand that you have to balance delivery versus well-being, right? And I think that is a really tight rope. Yeah. But as a base level manager, you need to understand that it's not delivery at all costs. You have to balance. There's always going to be times where you're high dopamine levels and stress and everything. But what you cannot do is keep pushing that on. And I think managers need to be able to have that conversation with their teams, understand it, that the otherwise it will tip the other way.
It'll tip the other way. Yeah. So if there was a sort of non-negotiable minimum standard, everybody who's got manager or leader in the title, or in our world, coach, you absolutely must have this level of knowledge.
It should have a mental awareness, health awareness certification. Yeah. Recognized, accredited, absolutely. I think that should be standard in terms of, you do people management courses, you do leadership courses, you do negotiation courses, right? It should absolutely be on the list of companies
one
to
of the principles.
Run the principles.
As a leader yourself with your own mental health, you reference you're kind of on a continuum yourself, you're kind of acknowledging the highs and the lows of it. How do you maintain your own standard of mental wellness?
So I think the biggest thing I took from this is introspection. And actually taking that time to understand where I'm at. Yeah. And also knowing that one day I might be a 3. Yeah. The other day I might be a 7. Yeah. And what are the factors? Is it sleep? Is it food? Is it diet? Is it family? Is it and I think that has been a real game changer for me. Yeah. Because it was almost like a weight's been lifted from my shoulder when we went through our work together. Yeah. And now I've continued that journey to actually say, okay, I'm not good today. Yeah. Let's think about, what is it that's not good? Yeah. Is it just overwhelming of work? Is it there's something on my mind? Is it something? And often I would be very, very active. Yeah. And I'm quite eccentric, in terms of extroverted. Yeah. And so it impacts you massively when you're struggling with your mental health. Yeah. Because everybody expects you to be extroverted.
That's right.
And if you're not, it can affect you. So sometimes I will withdraw a little bit, or the other thing I do is I try and make some space for myself. So if I'm going into a meeting and I'm not feeling great, I'm a 3 or a 4, I'll say to people, listen, I didn't sleep very good last night. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So if I'm not as present as I normally am, it's just because I'm a little bit tired, so just use a few deflection techniques just to create that little bit of space for you, and then I can go home, rest up, think about what I want to do, and then get back into the office, and then the next day it's fine. I think that that introspection and giving yourself, creating a little bit of space for yourself is really, really key.
Just as we come to a close in the conversation, you referenced earlier your son and daughter. What do you want for them when they go into the workplace? What do you want their leaders to be able to do in this space for and with them?
First and foremost, I want them to enjoy the workplace that they go into, feel safe, feel psychologically safe. I want them to be able to look up to their leaders, not just from a results delivery point of view, as individuals, and understand. And I want them to be able to feel that they, as you say, belong in the organisation. My children, 2 daughters and a son, they have seen me cry. They've seen me, they've seen my struggles, and it's a good thing for them. I believe it's a real good thing in terms of parenting, and also then, and they need to see that in the workplace as well as a continuation in the workplace. So I think, like I said at the very outset, companies now all talk about mental health. And some companies are doing some fantastic work. Any company or organisation that talks about mental health is a step forward from where we were 10 years ago. So I'm not knocking that. But I think, as I said, it's very much about, we have mental health awareness. We have a mental health or counselling, whatever, but it's not advocated enough in the organisation. It's only when someone has hit rock bottom to then say, we have this facility for you, right? Yeah. So what I would like is that managers in a workplace to acknowledge or recognise when someone is starting to struggle. Yeah. When they're starting to have difficulties, whether it be workload, burnout, whatever, and they act at that moment. That's what I wish for in my workplace, and I try and advocate that in my workplace. But my daughters and sons, and when they go in, they say, actually, this person are they okay? Let's just check in on them. Let's make sure they're okay. And then they act at that point rather than let it get to the burnout and then we deal with it.
And what would you say you're most grateful for? If you were to sort of step back in and think, the life I lived, the life I live now, my awareness of this mental health and how it has supported a literal life change for somebody. What are you most grateful for as a result of all of this?
I'm grateful for the people I've had around me on the journey with me. You know, like yourself, I had an incredible boss, who our mutual friend Michael Hick, absolutely phenomenal, and he was that guy that recognised. Yeah, I think you're struggling. I know you got a lot going on here, and he was the guy that connected us, and that's great leadership. And I think so. I'm grateful to have good leaderships and good sponsors around me, but I'm also grateful to have the support of an amazing team around me, and that takes work. Every individual in a team, but the sum of the parts, right? It's I'm not great at many things, but I've surrounded myself with some very great people at lots of things, and that has been really key for me in a work environment. Keep being curious, keep trying to understand new things about people and understand new ways of doing things, explore those new things, and I think so. I'm very, very grateful, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've been given through work as well, to move to another country, to lead 23 different nationalities, 96 people has been absolutely incredible.
Amazing, isn't it? There's something for me as you sort of close that out around we all need somebody.
Yeah.
We just all need somebody. We just don't know when we'll need them. And
it's often, again, just one last point. It's like in a workplace, you ever been in a pub where you're drinking and you're a bit down or whatever, and you end up having an amazing conversation with a complete stranger, right? And you might share with them, share stories about stuff that you can't talk to anyone else around, right? We all have those moments.
Yeah.
The office environment can be like that.
Yeah.
So you might have someone sat there on their own, like they're not talking to any of their team. You go and sit down and have a coffee with them, and then suddenly you start to experience. And I went to our kids' Christmas party in Amsterdam, which is Sinterklaas, right?
Yeah.
It was all in Dutch.
Yep.
Shouldn't have really been there, but I went there because I wanted to see the family, the children of the people that work for me.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and everyone was like, "Why are you here?" Yeah. And I was like, "Because I wanted to see the joy and see the and the connection that drove through there." Like, you know what I mean? And then I got some amazing stories from people around. Like, we have an Iranian family, we had Afghanistan family, like the journeys they've been through and their families, unbelievable, and so that's really, really important. Like sometimes these people in the office might be able to tell something or tell a story to you that they won't tell anybody else, and that's psychological safety in in its purest form.
Yeah. We all need somebody.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Joel, thank you for bringing your truth to the conversation. I'm very, very grateful for that. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Good.
If today's episode resonated with your own experience, take it not as advice, but as a mirror. We'll be back next time with another coaching conversation that dares to go deeper. We look forward to seeing you then for some more courageously candid coaching conversations.